I guess I'll just address it off the bat. Yeah, last time I mistook Asta for Meliodas. Meliodas is the one who sexually assaulted, groped a chick while she was asleep, and just apparently that's a thing he just does. Asta is the one who kept asking a nun to marry him no matter how often she said no. I mean, that's still not great, but it is marginally better, but we'll get into what I think of Asta later. Here we have it, the finale of Death Battle Season 9, flying straight at us unlike the joke that just went over your head. Deku vs Asta. Can't believe they didn't do the good Deku match like I did. So yeah, as I made it clear, I have no real interest in this matchup. At the same time, it has nothing to do with me wanting Deku vs Gon or Asta vs Meliodas. I know a lot of people wanted those matchups, and I'm just gonna say it, if you want those matchups, fucking keep requesting them, because it's not like Death Battle is immune to bringing back the same characters they've already used. Stop getting mad at them for doing a matchup they actually wanted to do. But yeah, Deku is a character. I'm tempted to just leave it like that, because I didn't even notice there was a rest of a sentence there. But yeah, Deku is a character I used to like, and now just find generic and boring. A bit like Naruto. And Asta is a character who I only knew by very negative reputation. Frankly, the Black Clover fandom have done nothing this waiting period but further cement how much I dislike Asta, because they have been some of the most entitled, arrogant bastards, and to be clear, I do not mean the majority of them. I'm sure that most of the people that I saw of the Black Clover community were just a small group of them. I'm sure many people watching this very video are Black Clover fans who are not obnoxious, and in that case, I'm glad you like the series. I just don't like the part of your fandom who decided to get all huffy at Death Battle for putting Asta against someone he stomps. As if most of them weren't requesting they do that anyway. Great, now I've opened this video up to 7 Deadly Sins fans who start screaming about how Asta actually loses to Meliodas. Wonderful. But you can really tell the Black Clover fandom has a certain subsection who have never watched Death Battle by how many seem to want the fight to end in like 3 seconds and be as boring as possible, with the copious amounts of, Deku would never give Luck a run for his money. How did Deku even land a hit? How did Deku even survive a hit? Because it's an animation made for fun, you hash brown. It'd be fucking lame if it was that short, and also this is far from the biggest stomp they've done this season. Hell, we've already gotten 2 episodes in this season that portrayed the fight as a stomp in very entertaining and well-written ways that did not just reduce it to one character splatters the other instantly. So based on the precedent, even if Death Battle did portray the fight as a stomp, they would have done it well, and the fans would still cry about it not ending immediately. Now that's enough talk about how insufferable this waiting period was, especially in the twilight days of it. Let's talk about the actual episode. Starting with Deku's analysis, it's fine. My favourite part was probably the Jump Force footage where they had him beating the living snot out of Asta. That was funny. The cutaway may have redefined what it means to be unfunny, but the fact that they did include getting his nuts potatoed by Koda in his feats is genuinely pretty amusing. I did get confused by one thing though. They mentioned Deku being able to warp reality in conjunction with All For One, which is strange because that's the first time All For One is mentioned in the analysis, and the only other time they refer to him, it's to the actual character and not the quirk, which I assume is what they meant, and that's it. Neither is that relevant in this analysis. I know, it just confused me. I'm not entirely up to date with Deku's growing list of powers that he shits out every 3 chapters. Of course, it is possible, and I think given the inflection used, is likely that this is just a mistake, and it was meant to be One For All that was said, which is, Deku's actual quirk, and I'm all but certain that I'm going to say All For One instead of One For All at some point in this video, even with making sure I didn't put that in the script. So, I'm not blaming them for making that mistake. I'm very certain I'm bound to make it at some point. But I'm still a bit confused, because they just casually drop that Deku can warp reality, and then never elaborate. Like, that seems like a huge deal, and if it's actually super minor and has no real application that would help him win that we've seen, I think they should have mentioned that in the conclusion. Because I can just imagine someone having no idea about Deku and him wondering how far his reality warping goes. Because, on paper, reality warping is like one of the most broken abilities in all of fiction, but they just casually drop it and leave. On a more positive note, however, the editing throughout this analysis is fine, but I really like how it steps up at the end with the manga and anime footage combined. That looks really good and I love it. And not only do I find classically trained dickhead to be actually kind of an amusing line, but I think the transition from Deku fighting villains, mentioning the big villain, how All Might did his best with Deku, leading that into his insecurities, then into Bakugo's role in his character arc, and then into the big feat with the segue of them working together, it's just so buttery. That is so smooth the way it transitions. A-tier analysis writing at the end there, in my opinion. So yeah, Deku's analysis has some a major stinker of a joke and some confusing writing, but I think it was overall decent with a really good ending to it. Asta's, however, is the one that I was more interested in, because no matter how insufferable the fandom was, I at least was somewhat interested in learning what Asta can do. And I did, and some of it did make me like him a little more. It has some jokes I don't like. I think the catchphrase joke in the sidebar is fun, and I think if Wiz didn't add on all of the time, the joke about Boomstick not complaining about lacking mana when he actually does would have been funnier. That being said though, all the other jokes about Asta being a male howling banshee are kind of just eh. In fact, most of the jokes in the analysis were about Asta is the jock who will lock or throw nerds, and Asta kinda loud. And the other jokes that weren't that also didn't land for me really. I did, however, enjoy learning about Asta's grimoire and sword powers. I think they're actually pretty interesting, and finding out that Asta's detriment is actually in this one specific situation a benefit was pretty neat. I like Wiz and Boomstick having favourite swords as well, and just given how overall interesting Asta's swords were, I found that part of the analysis pretty fun.
More akin to giant clubs than actual blades. Not entirely inconsistent with real-life greatswords.
Ugh, in a world where I already have to deal with brain-dead people who seem to think European swords are blunt, heavy clubs, I really don't want to have to deal with this in Death Battle. Suffering this misconception with them is just, please, never say this again. A great sword can be sharpened to as sharp as you need it to be. It'd only be blunt if it's poorly taken care of or so old as to be useless. Why do people still believe this crap? I've fucking seen and held and felt a sharp greatsword in my fucking hands before. Asta also had a cutaway gag that was less anti-funny than the other, ironically enough. It's weird that Boomstick is acting like he's not already strong enough to take a building down though. I guess sub-building level Boomstick confirmed, hashtag non-sweep, I mean hashtag Wiz sweep. But I will never not want Wiz to say, know your place redneck now. Or was it hillbilly? Know your place hillbilly. I don't remember what Ty said in the reaction, but it was something like that and it was funny as hell. So yeah, Asta's analysis was also fine. I liked both well enough, but I think I prefer Deku from a writing standpoint, but I did enjoy learning about Asta more. Then there's the fight. So starting with the setup, I like it. I think you need to really put in the work to have characters like these kill each other in this context, because this is just a friendly tournament, right? I mean, why would Deku get into Mortal Kombat tournaments? Maybe Asta would do that, I don't know him. I've heard from some people that Asta is in his anime design, while Deku is in his most up-to-date manga design, which if that's the case, I will admit is kind of weird. But I like Deku mumbling to himself with all the kanji around him. That is just vintage Deku moment. Deku is voiced by Jose Estrada. I'm going to assume it's pronounced Jose and not Joe's. But then Joe's would be funnier. Anyway, in his first role on the show, and I'm mixed. On one hand, holy fuck, that is a near perfect impression. He sounds just like Deku from the dub. I know, I've watched that dub a ton for the sake of making My Hero Academia abridged. On the other hand, having watched it, I noticed his inflections are a bit off. Deku is a character who in English always has this feeling of certainty and confidence with his plans. Whenever he ends his plans, he's more like, I can't rely on just my power to take him down. Not, I can't rely on just my power to take him down. I don't know, it's a very small thing and a minor gripe, and it doesn't really bother me. It bothered me a bit more than, like, before the episode came out, where we just had the sneak peek. But, yeah, now, it's not a big deal. There are some deliveries from him that I don't like, but there are also some that I really like, so I'll just discuss those when I get to them, won't I? Asta, on the other hand, I'll talk about him later. Also, what's with his arm? Why is it all black? Did he lose his original one or something? So anyway, the start of the fight is fine. The charge up to each other is really slow and awkward, and Deku not shouting, "One for all, full cowling!" is weird to me, given in the anime, he never stops shutting up about when he's going into one for all, or what percentage he's using, but neither of those are terribly major gripes. They're both minor things, and I'm sure people are going to say I brought up and then say, oh, you're nitpicking, why you dislike it? Yeah, those are minor things, I just said it there. Asta here is getting horrifically blitzed by Deku, well, maybe not horrifically blitzed, but like Deku only lands 2 hits. But it is a little bit weird to me that Asta is described in the conclusion as sneezing faster than Deku can fight, and here he's barely able to keep track of him. But then, I don't know Asta well, so it is possible that Asta is just not commonly portrayed as moving super fast, in which case, it's fine. Deku is portrayed as going super fast a lot of the time, so it's just a concession for accurate portrayal over accurate stat representation, and I can accept that concession. Deku's sword line then is on one hand kind of weird because it seems like Deku expected his opponent would just be allowed to bring a sharp blade capable of cutting him to ribbons in this friendly tournament. Like, what do you think this is, Mortal Kombat? I've referenced that already. But on the other hand, it is a funny line that's delivered really well by Estrada. Oh god, just saying his last name makes me think of a different Estrada. And technically, Asta was just allowed to bring a deadly weapon to the tournament that can cut people, so I guess it's not entirely wrong. And yes, I know they're using these super brutal powers on each other, but generally these characters are generally portrayed as tough enough to take a hit, while also getting wounded by blades a lot. You know or you don't know. Anyway, Asta goes to attack, but Deku unleashes epic bomb fire and avoids Asta. I do like that both get to use their precognition in this fight. I think it's a cool way to show that they cancel each other out. But a part of me wonders if it wouldn't have been cooler for, instead of both getting a slow, dedicated scene, they quite literally showed them cancelling each other out by having a silhouette fight in the dust where they're rapidly relying on it to get around not being able to see each other. Still, I think what we got is good, and maybe their powers don't actually work the way I'm thinking. This is a good point to note that this fight has a decent amount of jank in it, but there's nothing that actively sticks out to me, so I can't really say it was that bothersome. Asta then grabs a sword with his mouth, which I've heard some people say he only did when he didn't have usage of his arms, and have claimed it's out of character and he's never done this before, but I don't care because spinning time. And also the black meteorite scream from Asta is genuinely really fucking good. Then we get Deku using Black Whip, and the pretty amusing scream from Asta freaking out that Deku is not using magic. I quite like that interaction. But then he also says Magic Emperor, which just feels a bit weird to me given how they say he wants to be the Wizard King. But they do also say that sometimes they call it Magic Emperor, so maybe that's just fine. Then we get a good start to a dumb scene. Deku punching Asta with Black Whip, knowing that Asta will block with his swords and thus using that to get Black Whip on them to take them away from him, is a cool bit, and I like the bit of strategy Deku used here. However, I do not like the Detroit Smash cry. It just sounds off to me. Deku does not sound like this when he gives out his Detroit Smash scream in the dub. It's just, I don't know, there's no way I can explain this, but it's wrong. I also don't feel the weight of this or the following two Detroit Smashes. The Detroit Smash, from everything in Hero Arca I've seen, is a move that is repeatedly shown to be one of Deku's most powerful and devastating general hits. It does a ton of damage and always has a ton of impact. Again, maybe that's no longer the case in the manga, which in that case, that's fucking lame, but it feels weird to me. Not to mention Asta just letting himself get hit a bunch, and I guess maybe that's fine, because he does just tank them and is completely unharmed. In fact, he's more annoyed by the fact that Deku is shouting for some reason. I also want to note that Deku screams in this fight about as much as Asta, maybe even more, which is kind of weird when they specifically point out Asta as a shrieking goblin like 1,000 times. But it's not as weird to me as Asta pulling out his cutting sword and then just letting Deku hit him 3 more times, which, you know, I mentioned that, and it's really weird. The final Detroit Smash, though, is actually delivered pretty well vocally and actually sells me on its power. Then Asta transforms unharmed because he was just annoyed at Deku trying to outscream him. We get a pretty amusing line from Asta about not knowing what Detroit is, I like that, and the animation of the book getting yanked from Deku's teeth is also strangely smooth. I like it. Deku then spinning times and telekinetically throws a building? Deku can do that? I don't... Huh. Is Deku Magneto now? This really confuses me, because maybe Deku has telekinesis now, but they didn't mention that, did they? Is this all he can do with his reality warping? Throw buildings? Unless the intention is that Deku is using wind pressure to throw the building, in which case that was not communicated well at all. We get a very underwhelming clash, which awkwardly cuts from Deku being in the air and the two launching away from each other, to Deku running on a building with Asta now charging at him. I assume that something got cut for time there, but regardless, this is probably the coolest part of the fight. Deku running at Asta while charging at him is just great. The camera is set directly behind Deku, leading to their mid-air clash, which goes on to a full-on aerial frenzy and Asta giving a chilling scream during it before getting hammered. Yeah, it's a bit odd that Asta is clashing evenly with Deku while using the Cuddy sword, but I'll live. He then punches Deku, and I really like Deku's swing around this falling chunk of rock, and how it amounts to literally nothing. Now, Deku's bouncing is really awkward, especially with the Season 7-esque completely side-on sprite of Deku, like this is fucking Grey vs. Esdeath, as he jankily bounces around very slowly falling chunks, and then spins around on the ground like this, which is very Season 7. This whole bit has some really major Season 7 level awkwardness. But given there's almost none of that anywhere else in this entire season, I have elected to ignore it. What I will not ignore is that it's a bit weird that Deku just decides to go 100%. But I assume he's using Fajin to do the imitation 100%, and it looks cool, even if his scarf vanishes in the next shot. Deku quoting All Might's death battle is pretty fitting and kind of badass, and I really like his shout in general. It's weird to me that he can just shit out a 1,000,000,000% smash like this, but I'll live again. They do the stars and the line bouncing around them thing we normally get with One For All, but from a side-on perspective, which is a little awkward, but it works, and I like All Might showing up here briefly. That sort of replicates Nana doing the same to him during his All For One fight. It is also a bit awkward to me how Asta then charges in response but doesn't say anything, and gives what feels like a half-hearted cry that's not properly audio balanced while his mouth is completely still. I've heard from some that he has his own equivalent to Plus Ultra that Black Clover fans wanted him to shout out in response, but again, I don't know for sure. The actual collision, again harkening to All Might vs. My Guy, is incredibly underwhelming. Man, people are going to assume that I really dislike the episode because I said that. No, I fucking love All Might vs. My Guy. There is an extremely minimal outward explosion, and then both of them seem to crash into the ground? Like, I almost get the impression that Asta fucking grabbed Deku and powerbombed him, leading to a minimal explosion. And I mean minimal in terms of, like, the impact, how it feels. Obviously, outwardly, it looks big enough that Deku now has a higher kill count than half the villains he has defeated, which, But what's weirder to me is that they very visibly collide and then go straight down. But then in the next shot, Asta is just falling from the air and Deku is still up there? Shouldn't they both already be on the ground based on this? This feels like there has to be either something cut or a critical miscommunication. Because how in the world does Deku pose like this, but somehow all he did was make Asta fall straight down? And what is the stuff that fell down then? Because it can't be Deku or Asta if they're both still in the air. Did One For All and the anti-magic just launch each other straight into the floor somehow? Despite the fact that they both punched, like, horizontally against each other? I know that can't be Asta falling, because when Asta is falling, the city is fucked before he even hits the ground. It's just really weird to me, and I'm very confused by it. Then Deku is here in this weirdly low FPS hand-drawn shot, and Asta kills him by dropping swords on him. Which, it just feels weird to me again. Is Asta really the kind of cunt who will brutally murder someone over a tournament fight like this? Keep in mind, this is just a tournament bout, and while they have been going all out at each other, the only injury Deku has taken all fight is him breaking his own arm. And the only injury Asta has got are some minor cuts that I have to guess he got from his own sword falling down beside him. Like, I know for death metal purposes they have to kill each other, but this feels like it should have ended with the collision in mid-air killing Deku because Deku pushed himself too far, instead of Asta actively deciding he'll kill the guy that's falling limp to the floor. Unless, of course, Deku's eyes going white is meant to indicate that he did die in mid-air. In which case, Asta is no longer stabbing Deku because Death Battle has to end in a kill, and this is just a concession to end it in a death. He's just stabbing Deku's corpse because he's an asshole who really will kill someone over a tournament fight. God, I could already see this being like the thing of contention that it's going to be in the comments based on what I said. People are going to argue, of course, this is a fight to the death. Look at how they were fighting. But like, why would they consider this a fight to the death in this context? Yes, they're going all out, but Deku was going all out against Todoroki, and he wasn't trying to kill him at any point. He wasn't going in for the kill when he went all out. Hell, even Bakugo in that arc wasn't actively trying to kill people in the tournament. So from my point of view, Deku definitely wasn't trying to kill Asta. So is Asta just that kind of asshole? Because I don't know him. Maybe he is that kind of asshole. But in defense of the death, I have seen people ask why Asta's non-cutting swords were able to cut Deku at the end, and then I say, even if they are blunt, if they were thrusted down hard enough, they'd still be able to pierce Deku's body. Of course, it isn't portrayed super well, because they don't look like they're going fast at all, but this is technically possible. So I don't think that criticism holds up. At least, not when you think about it. I can understand people thinking that from the first time, you know? And then Deku dies in the Peter Griffin pose, which seriously deflates any seriousness I could have taken this death with. But it is the Peter Griffin pose. Asta gets his take that Detroit line, which is a funny, quirky one-liner, haha. But also makes me think the only reason he went for the kill is because he fucking hates Detroit. Then Hercule Satan shows up and all is forgiven. And I'm sure some people are wondering how all these people could be killed by the boom, but Mr. Satan survived. Clearly, if you're wondering that, then you believe into the propaganda lies about Satan being a charlatan and a con artist. Do you really think the man who defeated Cell, Boo, and motherfucking Beerus would actually die from someone like fucking Asta? Get real, dumbass. He even runs off scared at the end to tell the match officials that they made a mistake pairing him against someone so weak. Like, what if Hercule accidentally killed Asta in their fight? Hercule is many things, but a child murderer isn't one of them. Come on. But yeah, that was Deku vs. Asta, and I am very mixed. On one hand, there are some really cool shots, and I like the two reacting to each other's abilities. Deku is more analytical every time he notices what Asta can do, until he's forced into a corner and needs to rely on raw power. Asta is just freaking out the entire time and forcing through Deku's attacks and relying on sheer brawn. It feels very fitting for both of them, at least to my limited knowledge. Along with that, I think the effects mostly look really nice. They did a really good job conveying the speed of One For All, Blackwood saw a lot of usage, which in some cases was even pretty creative, and often felt like just exactly what Deku would do. The rigging was generally good and there were only some minor moments of jank and awkwardness. And I just think Asta's powers are cool. At the same time, I think some of the choreography just is not that interesting for the most part, and the entire ending really falls flat for me. The charge up is fine from Deku, but everything after that is just, Asta is weirdly kind of silent, where you think the moment for Asta's banshee howl to really take center stage would be right at the end. The collision lacks impact due to poor sound design and lackluster effects. The way it clearly looks like the two fly straight down and hit the ground is weird with how they're later shown in positions that contradict it, and Asta stabbing Deku is just kind of weird. I still really don't know if I've done a good enough job explaining that last one. I do expect a ton of comments like, of course Asta had to kill Deku, this is a death battle, or this was a fight to the death, of course he'd kill him. But I really don't think that in the context of what's going on, those are really justifications for the ending. Again, I feel like people are going to say, what, like they weren't trying to kill each other at the end? But it feels like what happened at the end was a result of the two pushing themselves to the limit to try and overcome the other, because that's who they are, they never give up. And not like the two were thinking, I'm going to brutally murder this guy, just I'm going to push myself to the limit to beat him. Once it was settled and both have calmed down, Asta going in for the kill makes him just feel like an asshole. And speaking of Asta, I've heard that this episode portrays him very accurately, which is kind of sad. Not because they did him accurately, obviously that's a good thing, and I'm glad that plenty of Black Clover fans got to see their boy coming out on top without much flanderization. But at the same time, my god is he unpleasant. I want to make clear, because every time I say something like this, people try to attack me over saying what Death Battle is talking about is bad without watching it, which as a result, very solidly can lead to me having no interest whatsoever in whatever I'm talking about. Hell, I have no interest in SpongeBob or Arcane anymore, because their fan bases are way more toxic than I ever thought. All I'm saying is that the impression I got of Asta in this Death Battle was bad. Not that he is bad, not that Black Clover is bad, not that the episode's bad, not that Asta being characterized correctly is bad. I just don't like Asta. He's portrayed as a brain-dead idiot who screams like a banshee and he kills people in what should reasonably be a friendly competition. And I'm led to believe that is who he is. I just don't like this guy, and that kinda sucks, because his powers seem genuinely really cool. I don't know, I might watch Black Clover one day, but that's really going to depend on how well people respond to me not having watched it in the comments, and if they put me off of it. I do really like giant fuck-off swords though. Oh, and one last thing, they make a decent deal about shoot style, but Deku doesn't really use shoot style, at least not in any way that feels like shoot style in the same way the anime does it. Of course, again, it's possible the manga doesn't emphasize Deku's kicks the same way as the anime, so this might just be an adaptation thing. Regardless, it's not a big deal, it's just something amusing I noticed. So yeah, in the end I'm mixed, but I think my biggest takeaway from all of this is that this is what I consider the biggest miss of the season from the Sprite team, and I think that puts into perspective how fucking good the Sprite team has been all year. Even with episodes that I don't like nearly as much as a lot of people, episodes I think have bad choreography or bad progression, any of that, I think the Sprite team has just continuously improved, and it's really impressive. This year has been amazing for the Sprite team. I don't think there's any season other than Season 9 where this would be the low point of the Sprite episodes for me. Fucking claps to the Sprite team. You've done fucking stellar this year, and let nobody tell you otherwise. Oh, and the conclusion is fine. So in the end, this is definitely an episode with its upsides, but one that I think is pretty average in most regards. Aside from really cool shots, I don't find most of it that exciting, with generally bland choreography, not a lot doing it for me character-wise, and an ending that I just don't like in presentation. Hell, I would have personally preferred if Asta had his swords ready, but then he noticed Deku was dead, or I guess from his perspective unconscious, and instead just let Deku fall, with this shot lingering longer to get across that he actually died here using the last of his energy in that punch. Then Asta saying his quirky line can be excused as him not knowing Deku's actually dead. Then again, I don't know. Asta maybe is the kind of cunt who would make a quirkster after killing someone in a friendly tournament. Oh yeah, I've also heard people say that it's weird that Liber, I think it's said, didn't say anything in the fight. I didn't even know he was his own entity capable of talking to and bantering with Asta. The analysis never mentions him as if he was that kind of character, so I can't really comment on that front. I thought he was more like the Beast in Black from Berserk, where it's like not really something that Guts would talk to in the middle of a fight. Maybe? I don't know. But yeah, solid episode, I liked it enough, but it was nothing special and pretty generic overall. Oh, and the only thing I'll say about the next time is that I fucking called it, and so did Biffweed, and that is the most positive opinion I have. Oh shit, I forgot to come back to Asta's voice actor. Michael Kovac came back, and he did a really good job, because whenever he gets to cut loose with Asta's attack screams, it sounds fucking awesome. And that makes me really wish his final charge got one of those raw power screams that Kovac has somewhere in his body, instead of one that gets drowned out by the music. Which, by the way, yes, is good. Strongest Alive is good, and yes, I know it combines Mighty and Marvel for All. If I didn't say that, then 10 people would bring it up in the comments. I am fully aware what it does. I hope you guys all enjoyed that. That was the review. Why do I always say that? Like, yeah, you're so stupid you don't know that was the review. No, of course not. Of course you know it was the fucking review. Yeah, but that's what that was, in case you somehow didn't notice. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that, which I already said, and I always do. Thank you to all my patrons currently scrolling by on screen. You do a lot. It is a big help. Thank you all for just supporting me. Not even just the patrons, but like you generally just watching this. It helps support me. You guys tell me what you think. I imagine there are going to be some people who disagree and thought the episode was great, and you know, I hope that's so. You know, more power to you. I hope you can enjoy it. It means that someone got like more enjoyment than I did, and that means there's just more net joy in the world. You know, I see this as an absolute win, as long as you're not an abrasive dickhead about it. And yeah, I'm sure Black Clover fans are gonna tell me how great a character Asta is, and yeah, go ahead and do that if you want. Like, yeah, I don't mind, as long as you're respectful about it and you understand that my opinion is not built. Like, my opinion is not built on anything solid, right? It's just built on how he was portrayed in Death Battle, what I know, limited stuff I know about him. You know. It's definitely not a very strong opinion on Asta, because I have not seen the series myself, so it's not, you know, you guys can go tell me what, like, if he's a good character or not, you know, I'm sure he is, maybe, and he might be an asshole, but yeah, so about Patreon, yeah, you go there, you get my Patreon-only Discord, where you can make me read out stupid bullshit, which they have done again. This one was there, like, last time, but I didn't know what to do, because Max has a way of talking, right? Oh, I hit the mic. He has a particular way of talking, and that could be taken as an insult. No, not an insult. He's a very fun guy to talk to. He's a great guy. But whenever I try to imitate his voice, I just sound like Adam Sandler. And it's not. I can't do that. Okay.
Isn't it racist that All Might has to represent America with his attacks? Why not Mexican Smash or Australia Smash?
The only person who can beat Goku is Goku. That's just a fact. I don't know what Detroit is, but I gotta get out of Detroit before it sends me to Ohio for real. They stole my Grimbar. Can't have shit in Detroit.
You see, Deku didn't win because he couldn't punch the best.
I have a theory on why you're such a bitch. This is probably like a SpongeBob. This is definitely a SpongeBob reference. There's no probably about it. I don't know what voice to do with this. I don't... Fuck, I'm just gonna do it as Deku and Bakugo.
I don't like Deku versus Asta!
Then why did you ask for it? I have to hit the gritty for All Might! Now that is very funny. Mr. Satan, can you tell the audience how you came up with such a strategy?
Well, Jimmy, as the world's martial arts champion, I watched this princess match against a green-haired kid and came up with a brilliant counter.
Mr. Satan, you shot him with a gun! Whoa! He shot him so hard he turned into pasta! It can only be the champion's new technique, Asta la pasta! You use your fists. I got multiple swords on my display and you decide to use your fucking fists? Okay, your funeral then.
My name is Joey Albert Wheeler. I live at 308, I'm not saying that because I could definitely say it wrong in this accent, Oreo Lane, Albuquerque, Detroit City, 87104. This is my confession. If you're watching this tape, I'm probably dead, mated by my best friend Yugi Moto. Yugs has been building I just changed voice midway through that. Yugs has been building a card emperor for over a year now, and using me as his dealer. Shortly after my 16th birthday, Hank came to me with a rather shocking proposition. He asked that I use my duelist knowledge to cheat in a card game, which he then bet on using his connections in the underground world. Connections that he made through his career as a duel master. Yeah. Number 15. Can 30 billion Gokus beat SpongeBob? The results may surprise you. I do that! It's chills! Alright. Oh, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Alright, have a good one, fellas. I'll see you for the... Well, I mean,
you'll probably see me like this before the next episode. It's coming out in a while, so yeah.